Live streaming is on.
Hold a second, it's not up.
What's not up? Oh, the site.
Hasn't deployed to Dreamcatcher land. Would have gone to.
Let me take a look.
Dreamcatcher Tech IO. Let's check. I can't go to that because it's redirecting.
7 minutes ago, pages build and deployment. Looks like it deployed. What's the problem?
Let me double check for a second. Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah. So I'm in Dreamcatcher land stroke license stroke DPL.
Okay.
It was just a caching thing.
Yeah, Dreamcatcher land license DPL. Dreamcatcher land just popped up. That wasn't available a few months ago when we were talking about names.
Someone dropped it, did they?
Must have, yeah. Anyway, it serves as a good precursor before we actually have any AI. I mean, AI is definitely the goal, but we have none of it, so we probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Eventually, let's keep hold of AI, but when we actually
well, because we can what we can do is deck out the AI site as like that's our vision, that's the place where we are most definitely done, and that's the thing we're working towards ultimately. But Dreamcatcher land is we'll start somewhere.
Yeah, cool. Do you want to, or I can share screens so that the stream, because we're going to be talking about the dock and talking about the dock in front of the stream.
Okay. So what am I looking at?
Right. I'll share my screen. So how's this stream working? This is your stream. It's pulling your output. So if you see.
Yeah, I can see.
Where is it?
I can see the website.
Here it is.
Your entire screen.
Yep.
And including all of your tabs.
Yeah, just checking through them in case there's something embarrassing there.
What have we been into here? Treasure Seeker. Oh, yeah.
There's always that possibility. Right, okay.
James Webb hexagonal pattern on the image in the back there.
What's that? Yeah, yes, it is. It's the first deep field.
The way it refracts, those kind of false lines, it's just so characteristic.
Yeah. It's some of the deep field stuff shows really amazing gravitational lensing, and
oh wow,
yeah, it's you should check it out. It's on the NASA's thing, and they keep on. So they got a data dump, and they're just processing it, and then they put up every day or so.
Wow,
and it really is astonishing. And now I've got to find my. Oh, sorry, I'm fucking around now.
Did you lose the license?
There you go.
Okay, all right. So what are we doing? How do we do this? I have I have
a cold read.
54 minutes.
Right, got it. A cold read through, and basically ask questions on this one. And I've got a few things that I've made assumptions on.
Okay,
I've changed something I may not agree with. So.
And to answer your high-level questions in WhatsApp, I think that pools are an essential element of the protocol, and while the protocol has 3 actors, it also has a handful of constructs. which we would be well advised to write down and agree on. But a pool is definitely a construct that is required for the Dreamcatcher to operate. The protocol depends upon pooling, because pooling is like how in a salmon run you can let them swim upstream by having those graduated levels. Pooling is the mechanism by which quality increases.
Yes, I agree with that. As it's written at the moment, essentially this license applies to everyone who's using the Dreamcatcher machine, and so effectively it's one pool, which is why I raised it. So then we might need to alter the or add into the contract saying what's so the pool is defined essentially by the QA, isn't it? And the QA and the governance of a pool allows you to go into that pool and have a certain level of confidence that what you're putting through that pool has a certain quality. That is what we've got here is essentially that applies to everyone. And the pool is defined simply by saying, right, okay, here's my QA, here's my arbiter that I'm going to agree with in the contract, and that effectively is your pool. So it's like a pop-up pool, as it were, which is not what we were talking about before. But what we were saying is the Dreamcatcher public license is global. You don't get a chance. You don't have an option not to abide by this license. That's what we're talking about. Five calls ago, I think it was. So
you can't call it the Dreamcatcher and not be part of this license.
Right. Exactly.
Right? But the pool that you're part of, I mean, you can start your own pool.
Yeah. Do you agree that the pool is essentially specified by three things? The QA that allows things into the pool and allows things to be released from escrow. The arbiter, which is identified, or a number of arbiters, a list of arbiters, which also agree with the rules of the pool, and the fact that it agrees with the Dreamcatcher public license, which is global. So there's those three things.
No, I disagree.
Okay.
I thought the QA was arbiter.
That's an interesting one. Yes, it could be, but the arbitration here is down to disputes.
Disputes with QA. You mean like giving you a layer above QA?
Right.
So I think I think that the mechanism. If I think of the arbiter as a piece of machinery that has an interface with the rest of the protocol, it looks identical to QA. So I think all you're talking about is nested QA, where there's one hire that just gives gives you a place to go.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of thinking about it.
And I think that there is, however, a pool admin, because the pool, like the moderator or the filterer, because QA, first of all, you can have many QAs in a pool.
Yep.
And QA is focused on sanity and correctness, not suitability or appropriateness. Yeah,
exactly.
And so the moderator says that.
It's coherence to the request or an idea.
Yeah. So the QA's job is to increase quality. Moderator's job is to say what quality you're interested in. You know, like quality enhancement, like making going from HD porn to 4K. Yes, that's a quality enhancement. Is it appropriate? Probably not for a lot of the pools that we're running. So,
right. Now the question is, do we apply that to Dreamcatcher public license, which applies to everyone? do we put inside here the fact that you can only transact in a pool or you're in Dust? And if you're in Dust, you're like in the Wild West. Good luck to you.
No, you don't. You don't have to. You don't have to say that at all. The DPL allows you to go and form your own pools. There is right.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And a pool is simply a construct of rules that have been supplied as a module to the DPL. So when I think of the protocol, I think of the software components, and each of them have a set of rules defined in software. I see the DPL as the legal equivalent of each of those protocol components, where there are protocol components that are members and there are protocol components that are constructs, which are sort of special types of machinery that we've included in the protocol because it doesn't appear to work without it, such as pooling, QA, moderation. Can't think of any others off the top of my head.
I guess I agree with all that, but the question really is, where does it go? So the Dreamcatcher public license applies to anyone who uses the Dreamcatcher machine, including the Dust guys.
Well, it is opt-in, so you can use the machine, but you need not sign up to the license. If you want to come into the pool, you must have our pool, you must have a certain version of this license. And if you want to use our gateway company to transact in fiat, you absolutely have to be part of this. You have to have signed up to the DPL.
Right. Okay, that's interesting, because what we've got at the moment is there you go. Under terms, parties to the Dreamcatcher public license. Can you see this? So the DPL applies to everyone who uses the Dreamcatcher machine. However, is not really enforceable. So if you sign it, then you get a greater confidence that the person on the other side is now legally on the hook, as it were.
Yeah.
And so two people who sign it, then that's a match, and you think, okay, that's good. But the DPO still applies to guys who just operate in Dustland.
It doesn't apply. They may wish for it to apply, and they can choose not to interact with anyone or filter out people who don't have a verified DPL flag showing up. Right,
exactly. But when we were talking about this previously, it's like the DPL is the rules. The DPL are the general rules. Let's take the Wild West thing. Okay, so the law is the law in the Wild West. If you're out in a desert, the law still applies, but the application of that is going to be dubious, and so someone interacting with you in that situation should have a lower level of confidence. However, if you go into a town where it's actually enforceable, then you have a higher level of confidence. But it doesn't mean that the law doesn't apply to you just because you're in Dustland. It does. It just, you need to have, if you're interacting with someone who hasn't signed it and publicized that they signed it, then you need to have a certain tongue-in-cheek, pinch of salt.
What's the point of even trying to say that it applies when you can't enforce it?
It can be enforced by external authorities. So this is effectively Dreamcatcher Hong Kong could throw someone out completely of the use of Dreamcatcher.
No, we can block them from our pool, and we can which removes their access to our fiat rails. They can still be on the Dreamcatcher. We cannot block people from the Dreamcatcher. It's an IPFS based blockchain layer that has a protocol for interplanetary attribution, for lack of a better term. Okay,
Yeah.
we don't set what that is. We have set up a narrow enclave where quality goes up, not down.
Right.
Quality
Cool.
doesn't have to go up, but
Yeah.
we made it because we want quality going up.
So I think this is. I actually agree, because this clause was originally written before we came up with the concept of pools. So I think what we're saying here is the DPL is attached to a pool or pools. So a pool can advertise saying the law in this pool is the DPL.
Yep.
Outside of that, yeah, good luck to you.
Right.
And
I mean,
the
you'll have to patch. You'll have to modify our default software configuration if you want to remove the DPL from being presented to you when you're running Dreamcatcher software. Like, I don't know if that answers your question a bit more about how deeply we'll insert this thing in, but it's open source software. There's no way to force it, and we're never going to block. It's compatibility is the most important thing with other people, not everyone agreeing to stick to the rules. It's the software rules that are most important. The legal rules are opt-in, and they will be corrupted from time to time, and we will purge people periodically once the corruption is discovered. But human enforcement is never perfect, and so
that's an interesting point. So by purge, so we have three entities to think about here, right? We've got someone who forks Dreamcatcher and changes the automation around these rules. So that's off to one side, and by changing that, maybe they still have the capability of interacting with unchanged versions of Dreamcatcher. Maybe they don't, depending on what they choose. But that's off to one side. The second side is you're inside the Dreamcatcher in unmodified Dreamcatcher in dust mode, and then the third is pool. So you're getting. I agree that we can't stop people just changing the automation around the rules that we're putting in here. But is it the case that these rules, if it's an unmodified version of the Dreamcatcher, these rules are going to be automated, and you're going to have the capability of escrow, for example. You might not have the capability to go to a legal court to argue about it, but
I feel like we're diverging here. If you're in our pool, and there are many pools, because the pool is a software construct that anybody can instantiate. But if you're in the pool that is associated with the Dreamcatcher Gateway Hong Kong, then you must have signed up and been verified to have committed to the DPL before you can transact in fiat.
Right. Okay. Yes. No, I'm cool with this. This is because this clause was originally written before we came up with the concept of pools. So let me take that. No, I agree with that. So to summarize, so a pool advertises the requirement to sign up to the DPL. Otherwise, you just can't get in. Now, you can then get in through putting a request or idea in through QA, but you don't even. Back to my analogy of a members club, you don't get into the members club at all, being a pool, without signing up publicly to the DPL.
Correct.
And that DPL, other pools could not bother.
Yep.
And still use an unmodified version of the Dreamcatcher in their pool where there's no DPL.
Correct.
Right, got it. Yeah. I agree with that. It's I have no problems with that. As I said, it's because some of these clauses are written before we were talking about pools. Okay, all right. So what's the other questions?
We don't have a blockchain to record.
This is a big
hard,
isn't it? Yeah, all the way through here, we're kind of in the original DPL as it was. We've been saying that there's a primacy of on-chain. Where is it? Primacy of on-chain data. Like, yeah, but we don't have
just write it as though we have the blockchain, because we might. It's a waste of time to write it any other way, I think. If it comes time to sign it and we don't have a working blockchain, we'll just add like a supplementary note that says, turns out we don't have a chain right now, and here is the workaround. But the DPL, our brain power should go on the blockchain version, because that's the thing that we care about.
Yeah, that's good. I've assumed that there is a chain all the way through here, and actually it's the core to everything from arbitration to QA is on-chain data.
I think that if you actually make the DPL shaped like the protocol, which is to say that it is shaped around funders, buyers, doers, and pools, QA, moderators. If you kind of bake that into the DPL, I think that these other modules become safer or simpler.
What do you mean by other modules?
Well, if you want to make extensions to the DPL, like include a different kind of NDA, or to pick arbitrary conditions, or to define new types of services and products, like physical products, or like, wooden panels, or those types of things. The list is endless. Each time you have a different thing and a different way of interacting, you need that defined as a module in the DPL. However, I don't think we want anyone deviating from that core protocol of, the funders, the buyers, and the doers, because it's no longer the Dreamcatcher then, if you break out of it, right? And so what would be the point in permitting a DPL that doesn't actually have the protocol operating primitives within it? And I'd say that, what are you even doing? Like, you're not doing the Dreamcatcher, that's for sure. And you know what I mean? Like, that's
I agree.
And it just confuses anyone who's looking at the DPL if it's being used for a bunch of other things, right? If you want to make a bog standard legal contract that you can plug things in, sure, the DPL could be rolled back further to a base chassis plus some modules on top, but we will present it with those modules already kind of bolted in, I guess.
Yeah, no, precisely. Interesting enough, though, you're saying link it to the doers, funders, and buyers. At no point in going through this and updating it did I need to refer to those guys specifically, other than as members, because all these things apply as members.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good.
So I think that's true. Let me. I might have mentioned doer once. Right? No. One of one. Where is it? No, it's up here. No. Yeah. I didn't have to mention any of the specifics, because they're all the collective noun being members. All of this applies to all members, and that kind of works because there's grey areas where a doer might become a funder, a buyer might become a doer, and so on. At the DPL level, it's all members.
Yep, that's cool. May I suggest a name alteration whereby a contract should be called a deal?
I like that. The reason I added Dreamcatcher contract, which is clumsy, was
because you tried to make it's not really a contract, it's something a little more refined, or a subset
Exactly.
of contract. Yeah. So why
but
not
that's-
name it a deal?
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah. And also, that's why I added license onto modules, because modules is a fairly over-indexed word in various areas.
Yeah.
So I changed that to license modules.
I'm just reading through a bit more.
Okay. Give me 1 minute while you're doing that. Yeah, we've had our 4 days of summer. And the wind's getting up.
Mate, that's like 2 years in one. Okay. Well, it all looks pretty good and pretty basic. Like pretty not basic, pretty ground rules.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of like this is kind of the minimum rules to have freedom. It's
Right.
like
That was the aim, wasn't it? Is to make the
Yeah.
DPL as light touch as possible,
yeah,
but no
yeah,
more.
yeah. As every good anarchist knows, you get more freedom when you have a little bit of some ruly behavior.
Yeah.
Okay.
The IPR clause is probably the one to focus on.
Yeah, I don't really know how we're gonna do that one. It's not really. I mean, if it's open source.
But we're saying it doesn't have to be open source. Yeah, licensing rights for packets.
I've a good mind to just sidestep this whole section, to be honest, and just be like, it's. You've said that there's a buyer. Yeah, the section about the rights holder of data or IP is free to sell or lease. This does not fall in line with our model of you can't buy contribution off someone.
No, it's the rights to the attribution, not the contribution. The contribution is there and will always be there.
Yeah, but you can't buy it. You can only fund someone more. It's the algorithm that decides if you get anything.
Yes.
Right? You're treating it, you're modeling it like it's a thing that can be acquired.
Yeah.
That's sort of that's the bit that I recommend we leave we leave it tangled. Like it never like it only instantaneously is made real at each instant that there's a dispersal. But
Yeah. So I never really got my head around this. This was 2 calls ago, I think.
yeah, something like that.
I never really got my head around this. So take me through a scenario, and
Okay.
I'll propose one.
Okay, simple scenario. We'll call this one late funder. You
Okay.
strike a deal with someone to pay you some funds to produce a packet.
Yep.
The packet completes. I come along and I say to you, hey, I'd like to fund that packet, even though it's done. I want to put some money in because I think that the algorithm will attribute me for this packet and I think it's going to be valuable. You accept my money.
Uh-huh.
The algorithm decides when the buyer eventually buys, decides whether how much the initial funder gets, how much you get, and how much me as the late funder get.
And when I come through and all right, so let's get something concrete. So I write a song, say.
Yeah.
And someone pays me to write that song.
Yeah.
50-50. So they have
wait. We fell apart right there. 50-50 what?
Right. So I write a song.
Yeah.
That's my contribution.
Yeah.
I could not have written that song. Yeah. So I'm gonna call it. That's right. So I write a song. I have that contribution. That's me. I wrote it. I'm the only one playing the piano or whatever.
Okay.
I could not. I couldn't have been able to write that song without, say, a patron paying me for a month.
Someone who funded you, right? Yep.
Right. Okay. So my contribution is there.
Yep.
The contribution of the patron is there.
Yep.
Right. And both of those are considered in the attribution, but they're separate contributions. Right?
Yep.
But they're listed in the attribution of that packet.
Yes.
So then a third person comes along after the fact.
Yep.
And says, "I'll give you £100,000 because I really like this song."
Yep.
And I'm going to put that as a third contribution for 100,000. Now, and I don't know what I'm going to get from that because the attribution algo have to decide whether I was late in the game or early in the game.
And given that the algorithm is open and public, you can run it ahead of time, and you can know, hey, if you went up and said to this guy, if he took the 100K, this is what the algorithm would calculate today. That may change in the future, but today you can know what you're going to get, and you can forecast that. And the other person on the other side can also forecast that as well. Now, if you've got no data because no one bought it, that's, it's anyone's guess, right? And the bigger the gamble.
Yeah. So as a third contributor or the third contribution into this packet, which is now listed in the attribution for that packet, where does that cash go? Does it go to the other two contributors?
You struck a deal with the contributor to take your money. You could have struck a deal with the initial funder to take your money, or you could have struck a deal with both for different amounts of money.
Okay. Right. And the fact of the nature of that is what the attribution algorithm decides. So if you...
It it looks at the algorithm needs to look at the timing of it, the amounts of it, and all the data that had occurred in the Dreamcatcher machine up to that point, such as had there been a number of dispersals from buy events, which meant that the late funder is taking way less gamble and knows very much what the future will hold. And so that should be discounted as well in some way.
Right. But the fact that you could go to the songwriter and ignore the funder actually helped.
Yeah.
That is the funder not going to feel actually, well, fuck you, because I was
Nothing got taken from them, right? The what they are due is the way that the algorithm has to work in that sense is that the dispersal is about to go out. It would first look at the initial arrangement, which was money and song, and it would disperse that, and then it would take the amount that was dispersed to the contributor, and it would do a separate calculation on the late funder's contribution and the contributor to figure out where that goes.
Right. I think I got you. Yeah. I was just
Right,
going
so
to.
you haven't lost it. The original funder hasn't lost anything.
Yeah.
Let's get our little tiny engine up and running and see if other people can't make more use of it than us.
Pick up the baton. Yeah, exactly. Improve it. Okay, so yes, right. Thank you for that last. I get what you're saying in terms of there is no transfer of ownership. There is a limited number of additional contributions which can be listed against a packet, which are considered by the algorithm.
Yeah. And you're never really taking away. You can't take away from someone else's contribution by accepting further monetary contributions from other people.
Yes. So you can never be diluted.
Yeah, the packet, as it were, can never issue more shares, but it's a funny one in that it never it leaves it. It doesn't use percentages at all. It just uses like you actually don't need to use percentages to keep everything separate. You're just like you put in that amount, okay? And then, when people pay, I mean, money is really just one type of packet. You could pay as portions of your other packets as well, and they can have these unresolved values as well. They don't.
Right.
You can trade bits of packets for bits of other packets where you're like, I'll swap you my piece of console.print in exchange for your piece of the refresh button on the browser.
Right, this is it. And because of reuse, that contribution, well, let me put it another way. It removes the zero-sum game. Percentages are a zero-sum game.
Percentages are zero-sum, yeah. And they have some nasty properties. Like, I think the most horrible feeling you ever get in business is dilution, because you feel like you got screwed. It's like, yes, I have my shares, but you just diluted me, so it feels like you took something.
Yes, right. Even though intellectually you're thinking, if the overall capex is higher, but it really does feel like you have, in essence, you do have less control. You do have less say.
You got less money, you got less control, and you're hoping, if you're like, you got to get over a lot of animal instinct to be like, well, hopefully it's got more chance of going to the moon, and then I'll get my piece too. But a lot of the time it doesn't.
As you get diluted, your chance of being able to control whether it goes to the moon or diluted further.
So anyway, that's sort of like the I know that is a novel concept, and but I feel like it's simple to grasp once we can do it a few times and can show demonstrations of it. And I really do believe in that model, because you do not need to say how much. You don't need to say what a packet's dollar valuation is. You can just simply have accepted some funds for it. You're implying a valuation, but that valuation means nothing in terms of how the algorithm looks at it.
Yeah,
Because
but also because we've got in the DPL, actually anyone can propose contributions or can record contributions, and that may be or may not be included in the attribution table. It allows things like you've really got to finish this overnight, and your mum comes and makes you a meal. Why is that meal not contribution?
it is contribution,
and it's not a dilution as well, so nobody else gets irritated.
Yeah. And then as we learn more and more about who it is that we own, like what I really want the world to get to is the history books are incentivized. And so the history recorded in Wikipedia is important because money is being paid to the ancestors of people who did great things. And so it forces the actual recollection of what happened to be right. And if you disagree, it's not like, if you have I don't know if you've ever had a disagreement with a historian, but if you can take my word for it, it's easy to do. It's easy to do, and the point is, it's hard to resolve, and it's also pointless because you're like, you're wrong, and they're like, I'm not, and you're like, looks like we've got a stalemate, right? And no one ultimately cares except for the sake of pride. But if these dispersal payments are being made based on the correctness of the facts, people will start digging for more information and proof, and will illuminate more knowledge, which is basically the Dreamcatcher's kind of thing.
Yes.
Illumination through incentivization.
We really do need to have a huddle very soon, next month or so, on an attribution algo. Because I know we've got our nominal kind of code running, so on. But we need to, it would help my head a lot to actually get something that you could grasp and turn a handle on and think, okay, and that algo will be changed and so on, and can alter with time and alter with different contributions and so on. But that's still the key piece. I don't think we've been putting that off for a while, but we really need to go from where we're at with it at the moment, which is like there's an algo, magic box, to actually hear the steps, something that could be tested and improved on, but not yet. So it's a few months away, but it's still sitting out there. That's the big last piece that might actually cause us some brain ache. But that's fine.
Yeah, it's cool, man. We have absolutely got that one covered.
Yeah. Right. Where are we? So, how much time have you got left? You must be close to the end of the year.
I think I should go. I can hear some noises that indicate that I should go.
Yeah, cool. Well, I've got enough for that. So I'll make a alteration to this one today. This afternoon, I'm going out with the kids, which is brilliant.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
But this morning, I would make an alteration just to the DPL on what we've been talking about. I'll probably not be able to commit the Dreamcatcher contract 001,
because that intellectual property rights section, like we are making a clear distinction that we're not stepping into the world of traditional property rights. The DPL is required to do attribution algo property rights. That's what when you sign to the DPL, you're signing up to ambient attribution, and that's what we're making a stand on. It isn't the DPL if it doesn't include ambient attribution rules in there.
Yes, and we do need an earthing event back into the real world, but that earthing event should be as light touch as possible.
Yeah, and even if you want to start using our logic for modular law on top, the DPL is still a ambient attribution payment thing, because we want it so that if you make a modular law system, you should be paying small attribution payments back to the Dreamcatcher for each use of it as a closed proprietary traditional IP management system. Like,
Yes.
so we sort of want to make that distinction that the DPL includes ambient attribution. That is the intellectual property right, or lack of rights, or standard, the intellectual property deal that you have between yourself and every other member.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, well, let me probably between today and tomorrow, the only area it's probably it's going to take me a few hours is the change of the IPR, and I'll double check because we've already got agreement to attribution there, but yeah, I think I need to rethink the IPR along the lines of that contribution. The registration of brute contribution, and then the subsequent application of attribution, as opposed to anyone being able to sell their own contribution.
Yeah.
Even if someone, this is an important point, which I think was where I got stuck on. Even if you pay me a day rate to produce something, my contribution is still mine.
Yes.
But there's another contribution, which is the payment.
Yes. And it's no one can say what the exchange rate of contribution to payment is until a buyer comes along and buys it.
Right.
Which is a bit of a distortion in capitalism, where that rule is applied at the marketplace. But when it comes to equity and knowledge contributions, they try to apply it at the instant of where the funder and the doer exchange. But really, you can't really know what the value of that contribution is until you got a buyer, because no one's really bought anything yet. So in our model, we're deferring the valuation until someone actually buys it for its finished utility, and not.
Which is kind of what markets are meant to set prices.
Markets
are to do with buyers and supply and demand. If there's no demand, how do you know what a price is?
Right. So we all have a guess. We get it wrong. People. Right.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's the whole system, right?
Yeah. Cool. Right. I'll let you get off, and
Okay,
I'll be around tomorrow morning. I'll keep working on this. As I say, I've only got half a day today.
all right.
But
yeah, I look forward to having a chat with Rannick as well. That sounds cool.
He's a cool guy. I'm taking off to the Museum of the Bank of Scotland today.
Oh, sweet.
To look at monetary policy through the years.
Sweet. Okay.
He loves it. He's he loves it. Yeah, I think you'll like him. Right. Okay. See you tomorrow.
I mean, he had me at the same OS, different OS.
All right. See you, man.
Okay, I'll see you later.
That's it.